Hey comrades, welcome to my presentation of faith healing as a pseudoscience for Dr. Duckles Logic class. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. America has the highest concentration of Christians globally. Within this Western pseudoscience appeal to tradition and ignorance, one will uncover various claims of spiritual and physical healing that come from third-party intermediates. These alleged claims of faith healing are made by both the faith healer and the believer. Followers of the Bible, especially the ones that are influenced from the New Testament, attribute the development of their selective skill from Jesus, as it's alleged that he informed his squad that the ability to heal the sick was evidence of faith. Because of this, those claiming to have possessed the ability to communicate directly to the supernatural are revered as having an abundance of faith, creating an appearance of legitimacy. Moreover, an unapologetic majority of Americans actually believe that one can be physically healed supernaturally by a non-human entity, thus allowing a platform for those who proclaim to communicate directly to the paranormal as valuable and an essential component to one's spiritual diet. This presentation will posit that faith healing through the development of the Christian doctrine is fraudulent at its very core and dangerous to human life, as it can become an obstruction of legitimate medical treatment. Christian faith healers argue that because of their wealth of faith and advocacy of a supreme celestial entity, they are able to eradicate physical ailments from their audience members that range from the common cold to the terminally ill. To do so, the healer will proclaim that believers with faith can be healed of their malady if one answers the altar call, which usually comes at the end of a melodramatic service and continues the religious theater. Professing to be an agent in which the Holy Spirit conducts miracles through a series of techniques, such as laying on of hands or speaking in tongues, the healer administers his or her paranormal power to the believer. This is what the believers call slain in the Spirit. An unobserved divine energy force generated by the Holy Spirit is transferred through the healer, and then it occupies the believer's body, often resulting in the believer falling to the floor in dramatic fashion. Ample fallacies are found in the arguments and claims of the religious and the community of faith healers more specifically. The framework of the faith healing empire is built upon a house of post hoc fallacies, which is perched atop the sinking sands of circular arguments and appeals to ignorance, emotion, and inappropriate authority. Conflating fallacies interact to create a slurry of inconsistencies which begin with mistaking correlation for causation. Alternative explanations, such as mistaken diagnosis, which requires no cure at all, aiding the elderly at the entrances with wheelchairs under the pretense of a complimentary service despite having the ability to walk with minimal or no assistance previously. In other words, the faith healer giveth, and the faith healer taketh away. The generality of faith healing is accepted as successful because it requires cooperation from both the healer and the believer. With a strong desire for treatment to work, believers fall prey to the predatory behavior of the power of suggestion. Scientists and psychologists refer to this as the placebo effect. The believer wants so strongly to be healed, and the healer desires success. So, working together, both parties can't lose. The believer experiences a false treatment, and because the believer has the expectation that it will be helpful, the symptom improves. The believer is deluded into thinking that they have been cured, when all that has been experienced is a temporary relief due to the release of endorphins and a cheering crowd equivalent to a handful of Percocet. To begin the approach to test the validity of the ministry's claims, we'll begin with two groups, a control group and an experimental group. In this experiment, 100 patients which have tested positive for the AIDS virus will be observed until death. The control group will receive medical care by traditional Western medicine, whereas the experimental group will obtain care from faith healers. The control group is administered the medication to counteract the advancement of the deadly virus. Meanwhile, the experimental group will be administered their quantity of thoughts and prayers and laying on of hands. Every day, the same process will be repeated, and each group will be monitored, compared, and analyzed. Results will reflect how the control group responds to the scientific, peer-reviewed, published medicine compared to the experimental group led by the religious zeal of faith healers. Positive reactions should be quantified as the improvement and maintenance of a healthy T cell count. If claims that are made by faith healers cannot be recreated in a controlled environment, fail at the components of criteria of adequacy, then it's certainly plausible to imagine that modern medicine is not only preferable, but it provides positive results. Because the testability is weak, the claims of one anecdote will frequently point to many others. Failing explanations, as it applies to faith healing, are seen insulated with ad hoc hypothesis with the intent of preventing the claims from being falsified. Occam's razor allows us to be pragmatic and confirms that modest theories are preferable to more complex ones, eliminating the possibility of an outer space wizard sending supernatural healing powers through third parties rather than accepting the more simple alternative hypothesis allows us to categorize faith healers as nothing more than predatory manipulators relying on individuals at their most vulnerable to line the ministry coffers with cold, hard cash. Even though prayer, faith healing, and religion is a comforting tool to navigate difficult times that are unexplained, it thrives on the absence of intellectual defense skills and takes pleasure in manipulating the most gullible. Faith healing requires us to abandon and ignore natural laws and accept magical thinking as evidence, often resulting in grave consequences.